everybody. This is Deborah Owen, and I am very excited today to be able to welcome Michael Funkhauser, the Teacher of the Year from West Virginia for 2013. Welcome, Michael. It's nice to have you with us today.
Well, thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Terrific. Well, it's wonderful to be able to learn some wonderful things from one of America's best teachers, and we are really privileged to be able to share some of your wisdom and your experience. So I was wondering if you could start us off by giving us a pretty good idea of what your background is and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I'd be glad to do that. Teaching has been my passion for as long as I can remember, and I went to West Virginia University after I got out of high school, graduated from a little high school, 24 seniors, went to W.Va. When I graduated there, I returned back to my home, and I have taught here since 1981, worked in PE for a couple years, and then went into Room 14 in 1984, and I spent the next 28 years teaching in Room 14. After my selection as the West Virginia Teacher of the Year, I was offered the position of academic coach in our county, and that's what I'm doing now.
Oh, that sounds exciting. What are you doing as an academic coach?
I'm actually visiting 4 schools. I visit one day a week, and then on the 5th day I work out of a little office they gave me. And I just go in and observe the teachers, see what they're doing that's working well, make some suggestions every once in a while, and most of it's tied to making sure that people are honoring the Common Core.
Oh, okay. That's a big deal now, for sure. I know all about that. We're having a big Common Core conference here in Massachusetts this weekend anyway, so yeah, it's definitely a big deal. Now, when you visit the other teachers, are you part of the evaluation process, or are you just there to really help them?
I am not, and I tell them that I'm the white hat.
Great.
So that they know that I'm not there, and I have no evaluation powers, or do I want to. Just there to help them. And along with what I'm doing, I will also do research for them. I may teach their class if they want to go watch somebody else teach. If somebody's doing something they really want to see, I may cover their class. Just fill in wherever I can be of help.
I love that. That's great. Did you have any special training to be a coach, or is this mostly just basing it on your many years of experience at this point?
Basically that. There was no training, and as a matter of fact, they have basically allowed me and one other lady who used to be the assistant superintendent to create these positions. So we're sort of winging it, figuring out how to do it as we go.
And it's within your district there?
It is, yes.
Yeah, that's great. I like that a lot. I think that probably a lot of school districts could really use that kind of a position, like you say, a white hat coach who doesn't have any evaluative powers, but can really be a terrific resource for the teachers and for the students as well. I like that a lot. I'm sure wish more teachers, more school districts would do that.
Well, and it's becoming more and more prevalent in West Virginia, but it's still somewhat new.
Yeah, yeah. In the questionnaire that I sent to you, one of the things that you said is your greatest joy comes from seeing the boys and girls grow to be young men and women. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Well, I can. Of course, I raised my own children in this community, and watching their friends grow and become successful adults, and watching some of the kids who my kids left the community, but a lot of the kids stay here and become an active part of the community. They join the rescue squad or the fire company, and they run for local offices, and that's been a great pleasure over the years to watch them grow into adulthood and be contributing members of our society here.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when in a previous conversation you said a lot of your students participate in agriculture.
They do. This is an agricultural community, and that's what drives the economy here. We also live very close to Virginia, where there are a couple larger towns where people do factory and that kind of work. But we have a lot of farmers, and we're proud of them.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like it's a good opportunity for students to grow and contribute to the society, to the community where they grew up.
It is. It is.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of motivational tips can you share with us? I mean, all your years of being a teacher and now being an academic coach, what kinds of things have you used to really motivate your students? Have you seen other teachers use some things that really work well? What can you share with us about that?
Well, we have done some extrinsic things that we didn't have to do when I first started. We have some reward programs that reward students for good attendance, because if they're not there, we can't teach them. and also for performance, which is a little different from when I started, but most of the motivation is still intrinsic. And it starts with, if we want them to work hard, then they have to know that we're working hard. And so they have to see that we're not just showing up at the last minute and leaving as soon as they leave, and that we actually put a lot of effort into this. And then the next part of that is we care greatly about their success, and they have to believe that. They have to believe that this is not just a job for us, that it's a passion, and that we want to see them be successful.
Yeah. So it really comes from developing the relationships. That's really what makes the big difference for them in terms of motivation.
And I've never worked in a larger system, but in a small system like this, that it's key that the kids want to perform for their teachers.
That's interesting. That's interesting. You
They
find
do.
that they don't want to disappoint you.
That absolutely. They want to do well because they want they want to give back to the teachers because they feel like the teachers are giving to them.
And how big is your school?
We graduate about 55 to 60 kids a year.
That's a small school.
It is very small.
Yeah. Is it just 4 grades?
It is 9 through 12.
Yeah. So that is a pretty small community. It's a tight-knit group of people,
It
more of a
is.
family.
It is. That very much so. Yes. This past year, I taught the grandson of one of the ladies I graduated with, and I saw him coming through the system, and I thought, now when that kid gets here, it'll be time for me to retire when I start my friends' grandchildren. But it is, and it's very common to have a kid walk in your classroom and say, "My dad had you for English," or "My mom," or both. So that's where we are.
That's interesting. Now, what do you think, after all these years of teaching and doing your best and pouring your heart out for these kids, what do you think was the difference this year in the recognition of being the State Teacher of the Year? Was there anything in particular?
I think probably some recognition back toward our school.
Okay.
Because our school has been successful with this testing, which is so very important now in the field of education. And I think the state was looking in our direction. We're very isolated from the rest of the state. I actually live closer to 5 capitals than I do the capital of West Virginia. So we are sort of out on the far end. And this is the first time in 15 years that someone from this area has been the Teacher of the Year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of rare, but I think they just looked over in our direction and thought there's a lot of good things going on there. And I've tried very hard to share this with the community and with our students because I really feel it's much more a school award than it is an individual award.
Yeah, yeah. That you probably have to depend on your colleagues and what the students that they end up giving you by the time they get to high school. Yeah, I can understand that.
Without a doubt, the young man, he's my age, who works across the hall from me, he and I have been together since 1984. We buried our parents together, or actually his dad and my mother died about the same time, and then actually our parents got together and we're really good friends for a long time. So we've shared a lifetime together.
Yeah.
He's an excellent teacher. So we've pushed each other over the years to continue to get better and to grow in teaching.
You know, that's a really good commentary on the fact that there are so many teachers who just go into a room and close the door and they feel like they're in their own little place and they're kind of not beholden to other people. And yet what you're saying is, even though you do have to close the door and you deal with your students, at the same time there is still a relationship with your colleagues that informs your own practice.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Sure enough.
Yeah, that's great. Let me change the subject a little bit. How do you see your students using social media, or how would you like to see them using social media? Those are two different questions.
And I'm sort of a rogue in our school community because we have the no cell phone policy with our students. Mm-hmm. I would like to see us move into managing the technology a little more and taking advantage of it, because we're really not stopping them from using it. Mm-hmm. We are just basically, they're just using it for what they want to do with it now, and I would much rather come in and say, okay, get your phones out and Google William Shakespeare and tell me where he was born, and actually use them for some positive things instead of just social media. The social media part has changed a little bit of administration of a school because some of our discipline issues are created by social media because things that kids read online or wrote online, and that's changed the principal's job a little bit. But
Yeah.
it's here, so we may as well use it to our advantage.
Yeah, find the good in it and teach them how to deal with the temptations to do other things with it, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. That's certain. Yep.
Yeah. What sort of technology do you and your students use then at this point?
Well, it's funny you'd ask that. I remember very early on, probably 1984, 85, when Apple did an Apple for the Teacher and bought desktops into classrooms. And I spent 45 minutes doing a tutorial to learn to use the mouse, thinking to myself, well, by the time this really becomes popular, I'll retire. And 5 years after that came along this animal called the Internet, and it's just blown up since then. And we try to keep up. I mean, we don't have the money that some systems do. One of the things that was a benefit of being the Teacher of the Year is that Smart gave us at the school a smart board. And I put it in my classroom and then left the classroom, so the young lady who replaced me has the benefit of it. But, we use what we have, and of course the Common Core puts an emphasis on using technology, so we're trying to keep up.
That's right. It's not an easy thing. How do you and your colleagues view the Common Core at this point? I know that there's a lot of mixed feelings about it, and I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are.
Well, the controversy of the Common Core really hasn't hit us too much yet. We are going to do the Smarter Balance Assessment, and West Virginia is calling the standards the next generation standards, but they're basically the same thing as the Common Core standards. And in our local area, I guess in part because I was the Teacher of the Year, I got a little credibility in the local community, and so the teachers here, I've had a lot of opportunities to study and learn more about the Common Core in my travels as Teacher of the Year. And so they're buying in a way that they might not have otherwise. I'm just guessing that. But right now, our folks are, they're doing it. They're trying to change the way they teach. Not everybody. We're not 100%. We've got some folks who've been teaching for an awful long time, and I'm not sure they're going to make the transition or the shift, but they may not. They probably aren't going to be in it that much longer.
Yeah.
So I think in a few years we'll be in pretty good shape with it.
Okay. What are some of the things that you struggled with early on in your career?
Well, time management was a big deal when I was younger. I did a lot of coaching, and sometimes I would let the schoolwork go because of the coaching business, and it took me a while to realize that I was a teacher first and a coach second. Content, I loved history, but I needed to get an English degree because I wanted to get a job, and those were the jobs that we could get. And so, not that I didn't love English, but history was my passion. But it took me a while to get the content, especially when I moved from middle school to high school. But most of the rest of it came fairly naturally. As I said, this is something I wanted to do since I was really young. So I watched good teaching when I was growing up, and been around schools all my life.
So you kind of had teaching in the blood all the way along.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what kind of advice would you, and as an academic coach, you probably get to do this pretty regularly, but if it's somebody you haven't met, say somebody who's listening to this interview, what kind of advice would you give, particularly new teachers at this point, in order to, kind of get through those first 3 to 4 years?
Well, one of the things that it's occurred to me over the years is that teachers need to always be aware that every one of those kids in their classroom is someone's child, very, very special in someone's home. And it sounds trite, but I really think that helps drive good instruction, because you've got to teach all of them, and you've got to look at them and say, let me meet you where you are and see if I can get you to a special place where you can do something with your life. And I'm not sure all young teachers always get that. I think sometimes we come into it and we think, well, let me pick out the ones I can teach and the other ones will just figure it out. And once you've been a parent, you would never want anyone to treat your child that way.
Yeah. I'm just curious now, as an academic coach, I know you haven't been doing it very long, but Are there some common mistakes that you are observing in the teachers that you're watching, as well as what are some of the things that you particularly enjoy watching them do?
Well, I've seen some very good teaching in our community. I've seen some young teachers who are doing a lot of project-based learning, getting the kids going with performance tasks, which is a very much of a Common Core thing.
Right.
We still have some teachers who are lecture oriented, probably to too much of a degree. Our state superintendent likes to say we need to stop being the sage on the stage and become the guide on the side. And I'm seeing a lot of the guide on the side, but every once in a while I'm still seeing a little bit of the sage on the stage. And we talk a little bit about letting go, but it's hard if you've done it one way for 30 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's
And
true.
you feel like you're good at it, and now somebody's telling you, well, let's try something different. So
That's right. It becomes a challenge to find new ways to do the same thing.
you're exactly
Yeah, yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about the Sustained Silent Reading program that you have?
Well, this is something that we got into a couple years ago. It's certainly not new. We were finding that our kids just don't read. When I grew up, we had a daily newspaper in my home, and I had 4 sisters, so we didn't all probably do it, but generally somebody would grab the newspaper, and I read every sports journal I could get my hands on, and our kids weren't reading, and so I gave up my last year of teaching. I gave up 10 minutes a day out of each class period. And as the kids could bring anything they wanted to read, as long as they would read. It could be, well, I mean, obviously within reason. But if they wanted to bring hunting magazines or their latest library book or their latest love novel or whatever, as long as it was school appropriate, that was fine.
Right.
And we had some success with that. There were some kids who you just were trying to, had to hit them over the head to get them to read. But most of them appreciated the opportunity. They couldn't do homework, which was a bane of contention because they thought that all of a sudden now they were going to have homework time. I said, no, it's not for that. I need you to read. So if you're reading your science book because that's homework, that's fine. But other than that, it has to be involved reading. So, and our scores reflected some improvement. So we think it was successful. I know that school, I'm coaching at my old school, and they're still doing it and trying to do more of it across the curriculum to try to get more people involved.
Yeah, I think a lot of schools are really going heavy toward making time for reading. I know our school is definitely doing that. Every single English teacher, I'm the school librarian, and every single English teacher brought in their kids. So in about a 4-day period early in the year, I think we had something like 35 or 40 classes coming in to get library books.
Well,
they're trying to get them to read constantly, or at least every single day, every day.
And that has been one of the ancillary benefits of it is that we do have more kids using the library, which is a good thing.
Right, right. Speaking of which, since I'm the librarian, I always ask, what are some kinds of things that you like to work on with your librarian? Are there any particular research projects or tech projects, or what kind of things do you work on with your librarian?
Well, we've changed librarians like 3 times in the last 4 years, but we've always tried to use the librarian to do the beginning of the year library tour to teach the kids and remind the kids of how you navigate the library, and that's changed in my time of teaching. We've gone from the old card catalog and the big long drawers to the digital card catalog and everything, so that part has changed. And then the librarian works with us in spending the money that he has available and what types of books to order. And we use him sometimes if we have small groups, because we have a small group of Kindles. We don't have enough for a class group, but we do have a small group. And sometimes he will lead reading with the Kindles. If we have a group of students who want to have something read out loud. So, basically he's there when we need him. He's very, very cooperative, and we do lean on him for testing, and then also with advice and what he feels where we should be going with reading. He's a part of our language arts team, so he advises us too on where we need to go with the reading and what's new out there.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I always like to hear that you're using a librarian, although that's kind of a revolving door. Hopefully that there will be some consistently in the future.
I hope that he'll stay for a while. But if not, at some point we need to find somebody who really was committed to a younger person who's going to come in there and be in for the long haul. But
Right.
it's going well.
Good. That's good. Um, and then I guess we'll just end up with asking if there are, what's kind of the one thing about teaching that you would be interested in sharing with our listeners? Is there one thing that you'd like to pass on, or it could be teaching in general? I mean, not everybody teaches in schools. There are all kinds of teaching. Is there something that you can share with us along those lines?
Sure. When I was selected as the West Virginia Teacher of the Year, they prepped us a little bit that if you were selected, that this question would come up, and the media always says, well, what makes you the best teacher in West Virginia? And I said, well, I'm not even the best teacher in my home. My wife was a wonderful music teacher, and
That's great.
And it's a award that came to me late. I feel like sort of a lifetime achievement award. I feel a little bit like Sally Field and the Oscars, but it's been a blessing. I wish every teacher could be treated the way I've been treated this year. My wife and I have had some wonderful opportunities to travel, to meet some amazing people. As I said, we'll be going to Princeton next week for our last meeting with the Organization of Teachers of the Year, and it's very bittersweet because I know that a lot of these people I'll never see again, and we have developed some fairly strong bonds in our time together. So the teaching field is always changing. It's certainly not mundane. You're getting new kids, new challenges all the time. For me, it's as I said, I thought it was going to be a fairly simple operation, and I'm still at my age still thinking, how am I going to keep up, and how am I going to be able to do what we need to do for these young people? But it is so worth the effort and the challenge.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I just want to thank you, Mike, for first of all, for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate your sharing your wisdom and experience, and also thank you for all that you've been doing for your kids and your community over all this time, and clearly the fact that kids come into your room and say, hey, you taught my parents, and they seem excited about it. I mean, that's a good thing. So thank you very much for all that you do.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mike.
All righty. Bye.